And we're very fortunate to have three expert career coaches, Orla Danagher, Ilaria, Dondero and Susan Keating, to give you all the most valuable tips for getting started or getting back into the jobs market. And the talk is part of Work Matters at Your Library, and that's a national program where you can get specially selected books at your library that can help you, nail that application process, conquer your interview nerves, and really put your best foot forward when it comes to the jobs market. We have free events, and we also run a series of Start Your Own Business lectures for any of the entrepreneurs with us today. And they're starting on the 23rd of September. And like everything in your library, it's all free. We have a great selection of online resources that can help you upskill for the jobs market. And we have lots of digital magazines and eBooks as well. So you can just download them, and it's free to join. You can join online. All the information you need is at dublincitylibraries.ie. So I will introduce our first speaker today. So Orla Danagher is going to speak about CVs and application forms, and she's the founder of Interview Tutor, and she's over 15 years experience in personnel management, staff recruitment and career consultancy. Orla offers her services as a career coach and a speaker, and she has written articles for national papers and has appeared on RTE series The Unemployables. So thanks very much, Orla, for joining us today.
Thank you, Gillian. Thank you for the lovely introduction. You make me sound old now, 15 years experience, but I'm sorry to say it is true. So sorry, bear with me now. I'm going to get up the presentation. Oh, very welcome. Thank you so much for Dublin City Library for making me a part of this event. I've done a few of them and they're always fantastic to do. So I've been asked to talk about CV and application forms. As Gillian said, just very brief, I won't go into it. She gave me a lovely intro. My background basically spans from being a hiring manager, so being somebody that was in charge of hiring staff. I've been the other side of the table many a time. I then moved into recruitment, so I suppose that gave me a really good exposure to what employers are looking for and what they need and what they see when they see a CV or when they interview a candidate. So I hope to bring that knowledge and experience into today's talk. So I suppose really I'm going to get straight into it. We've 30 minutes each, which isn't a lot of time. So we I need to be straight to the point. So the trick for me is to give you some golden nuggets of information at the same time, obviously not rushing through it. So really one quick point I want to make is that, you are in the driving seat. If you're willing to put the work in, be it through your CV, your application form, your LinkedIn profile, your cover letter, and onto your interview prep, it will absolutely pay off. A few quick facts which I feel will help when you are looking to dust off the CV or fill out that application form. I think it's important to note that hiring managers, the research has shown that within the first 30 seconds, they're making up their minds. So your CV or your application form is landing on the desk of that person and they're scanning, because you have to think about it. They've got 300 people, or excuse me, 300 applications coming in. So they're scanning very quickly. So why is that point relevant? It means that you need to have impact straight away. So when I'm giving clients advice, the first half of the first page is absolutely vital. So through your profile or your summary paragraph, or some people put underneath that an achievement section, that has impact straight away. So it's making sure that you do that. Employers are looking to see what you can bring to the table. That's what they're trying to ascertain when they see your CV landing on their desk. What can this person give me? Essentially, that's what it's all about. So they want to know, how are you going to solve their problem? A vacancy is a problem. They need somebody to fill a role. So how can you be part of that? And I think if you understand that, then you will get that, you make sure you get that message across through your CV and through your application form. Through this whole process, you know, from CV to right through to the interview process, they want to satisfy themselves with three main areas. Can you do this job? So do you have the skills, the experience, the qualifications, the right attitude, the soft skills? Do you want to do the job? So what are your motivations for applying for my role? Don't underestimate that one. It is extremely important. And I've had clients over the years that their motivation, interest, and tenacity about a role has actually got them over the line when they've been neck and neck with another candidate. In some cases, actually, a company, even if you're a bit short on some of the experience, but you are extremely interested in the role and show the right attitude, they've actually selected that candidate over the one that maybe has some of the kind of concrete work experience. The third aspect is, are you fit? So are you going to work well? Are you going to work with Mark and Philip and Mary and Bobby? Are you going to get well? Are you the type of person that will work well in our organization? That is more, I suppose, relevant for the interview piece. You know, it's about meeting the people, but through your CV application, you can get across your attitude and who you are. So next part, understanding your market. This is key. So before you start attacking the CV and dusting it off, what I'm trying to get across, the most important bit, is actually know who your target audience is. So what information can you use? You've only got the job spec really to go off. So you look through that document, go through it in detail. Don't just scan. A lot of people just scan through and say, yeah, that's it. I'll just, you know, dig out my CV and hit the send button. Step back a bit, go through this and say, what are they actually looking for? So you're looking at the job spec. Do maybe go into their website. What are their ethos? What seems to be important to this company? And how can you work that information into your CV? So how do you make the link here? So the company and you, how are you making that link? So you look at your skills, your experience, your education, your qualifications. Again, get across your interest in your job. I'm going to talk about this in a sec about the profile section. You can actually express interest in the job at that point, and you need to make the link. So in very simplistic terms, what you're trying to achieve here is a cycle of doing the groundwork, analyzing the job. Then you're going to tailor your CV, and then you're going to send in your application. The idea is, if you're going for the same type of job, what you want to do is have the CV 80, 85, possibly 90% ready. And then as you're applying for a role, do the analysis and kind of think, well, I'll do the final tweak here. And that seems to be important to this company. If you're going for an administration role, 3 roles, for example, every single role is slightly different, even if it's the same type of job. So if you understand that and do the final tweaks, it doesn't, I'm not saying for a second that you have to do a dramatic overhaul every time you want to apply for a job. The small tweaks, but those small tweaks will pay off. It's fitting yourself in with that role. Obviously, it has to be accurate. You know, you're understanding what you're going to bring to that role and be able to back up then at the interview stage. So in more detail about the job spec, how do you analyze a job spec? Most good, decent, well-written job specs are comprised of 3 main areas. There's job tasks and duties. They generally will have the competencies or soft skills required. And then they'll have another section with the requirements for the role. So they're looking for somebody with 3+ years experience. They're looking for a particular qualification. They might look for a technical ability or knowledge, be it a software package or something that's more specific for the role. So go through that in detail and kind of think, right, well, of all of those things, what do I have? And where can I put that information and make sure it's in my CV? Brief tips on the format. I mean, some of these are well known. There's no shocks here. But again, I think it's worth reiterating a couple of these because I still see it. I see a lot of CVs coming into me. And, you know, there's still some of the what you suppose you assume people know or should do isn't quite being done. So make sure it's a readable format. So use spacing, have things clearly laid out. If your dates are a little bit to the right, have them all at the same underneath each other, have a format, making sure that you use bullet points, make it clear, no chunks of text, with the exception of the profile paragraph, the summary paragraph at the start. I'm okay with that. I think that's fine to do. Some people do it in bullets, and that's okay too. But most certainly when you're talking about your work experience section and anything further down the line, with your education, wouldn't necessarily need to use bullet points, but just have it well spaced out. People are often coming to me saying, how do I write a good CV? What's the key? I hear now they're doing this, now it's that. There's no magic formula. You hear about all sorts of fads that come in and out. It doesn't need to have glitter on it. It doesn't have to be pink font. You hear all these funky stories about people sending job applications to Google in a box. That's fine if you've got a very creative job. But vast majority of us, when we're making an application, it's just a well laid out CV. The content is the key. It's what are you saying on the CV? That's the key to it. And that's why people will select one person over another to call them in for the interview. It's the content. It's about making the content relevant. So you don't have to put absolutely everything that you've ever done since the year dot on the CV. So it's about what would be relevant. You have a chronological order of your experience, your work experience. Pretty much once you become, professional in your first professional job, I personally like to have a full account of what you've done. Obviously, jobs going back 10, 15, 20 years, it might just be just a quick one-liner. You don't need to give me the massive detail. The other thing to note is when you're talking about your work experience, it doesn't have to be the same amount of bullets for absolutely every job, in the sense of, for example, if you had a previous background as a project manager, you moved out of that area for a couple of years, you went off to be an accountant, and now you want to get back to being a project manager. Well, then your project management experience would have more detail than the accounts and the less relevant. So use your judgment, and you can condense what's not so important to the person reading the CV, and you would elaborate on anything that would be relevant to them. Okay, so you're tailoring it all the time. And I'm going to talk about in a second more detail, the profile, I call it profile, some people call it summary section, the opening paragraph targeted to the job you're applying for. People often ask me, what about the length of a CV? How long does it have to be? My personal feeling is, and from listening to employers, max 3 pages. It can go to 3 pages once it's relevant. 2 is fine. I think 1 could, based on the Irish market, 1 is generally seen possibly too short, doesn't give enough information. I know in other European countries, especially with the EU passes format is used, 1 page is fine. I found a lot talking to employers sending through CVs in my recruitment days. There was a bit of a complaint that they felt that there wasn't enough information to ascertain if somebody's suitability for an interview or not. So they do tend to like, kind of 2 to 3 pages. The key is you have to commit to full pages, no 2.5, no 2 1/4, no 2 3/4 or 1 3/4. You can't leave blank space, so fill it in. Okay. Other tip is do try and have achievements in your CV, things where you added value to each of your roles. Ideally, if you can come up with each of your roles. So you can put in achievements in 2 ways, really. 1, you can put an achievement for every job under each job. So you can put it at the bottom underneath your bullet points. So you could call it work highlight or key achievement. If for some reason you don't have an achievement for every role, maybe it was a short-term contract and just wasn't enough meat in the role to allow you to kind of get an achievement, well, then you can just put it as a section with all the achievements together. Competencies, do try and work in the competencies. Is often see on CVs, people list skills, team player, strong attention to detail, reporting skills. But they're a list, they're a shopping list, and that doesn't really tell us a lot. I would encourage you to pick 4 or 5 relevant soft skills for the role and give a line or 2 where you acquired that skill. I think that that sells it much better and that backs it up. Rather than the shopping list of just words, you've actually shown where you've acquired the competency. Last point there, master copy. That can be as long as you want. That can be 20 pages long. Have all your information together in one place. But what you want to do is you'll have a CV, a tailored CV. Some people that are going for admin roles, they're also going for maybe a HR position, a junior HR role. There is overlap, of course. So what you'll do is you'll have a slightly different version of your CV depending on the roles you're going for. Content is strong is the key thing. That's effective CV. So go through the spec in detail, as I said. If you don't have one, go through more, find a general one online to work off, something you can benchmark what this job is about. Identify all the relevant skills, experience, education, competencies, and your transferable skills. What do I mean by transferable skills? As I said there, admin, role, background, and you're now moving into HR, for example, there is a lot of crossover there with those two roles, so that you're highlighting those transferable skills there. Know any unique selling points. So a simple example is you were going for a software development role with all your qualifications. You're going for an interview or applying for a job with a French company, maybe the headquarters in France, but you also have fluent French. So that is a unique skill. You have a crossover. So they could say, oh, that's fantastic. You know, she has the software development background and they've got the qualifications. But that would be really useful that that person also has French, because you'll be dealing with the French team in Paris. Okay. Do familiarize yourself with the company. What are their products? And if there's anything you worked similar, anything similar in your background that you've worked, maybe similar clients, similar types of products, make sure you get across in the CV. It's effective only if it's well structured. Sorry, I'm talking about the profile section and the career summary, the opening. So it has to be well structured, it has to be tailored. It should be no more than a paragraph in length. Brief intro, who are you? A qualified accountant with 6 years financial experience. So it has to be obviously relevant. And it can be very useful. As I gave a brief example, maybe you're moving back into a particular type of job. You had a project management background and then you moved into being an accountant and now you're trying to get back into project management. It can be a great way of highlighting first your project management experience and focusing the attention on that area. So it can be very useful in that way also. Just a little bit further on that as well, this section. So try and pick a couple of competencies, 2 or 3, avoid a shopping list. So if they are in the spec mentioned 2 or 3 times, attention to detail is very important to them. It would make, and you have that and you can back that up, that would make a lot of sense that you go off and that you make a reference to your ability to strong attention to detail, and try and back it up slightly with something. Maybe you did the reports for the CEO, or you worked with the sales director on reporting targets or reports. So try and back it up, a quick backup on that. Tangible skills work in as well. So you're a medical sales rep. It would be relevant to also state in the profile section that you have a full clean driver's license. So things like that. Education qualifications, obviously you will have a section further down on your CV listing all your education qualifications, but if there's a particular qualification you have that's very relevant to the role, so project management, Prince 2, Six Sigma black belt, just reference it there. So they're the key things. What you're trying to do is dangle the carrot. You're trying to literally hit all the marks of them, and you want to get them warm and fuzzy about you straight off, and that goes back to that 30 seconds. You want them feeling, you know what, I'm going to color in for interview. You already want them to be making up their mind before they haven't even finished reading your CV. Last point then on this section, your mission statement. So do state at the end of this paragraph, looking to pursue a career in the financial services industry, looking to pursue a career in whatever. Obviously it has to be in line with the job you're applying for. So it's important to say, this is what I'm looking for. Please don't say a number of different types of roles. I see there's a bit on CVs. So ideally looking for a job in HR, sales and administration. They don't want to feel that. They want to feel that you're targeting them specifically. So the kind of speed dating tactic on CVs doesn't work. You want them to feel that you're kind of targeting their industry, their type of job, and that's in line with your career. aspirations. Okay, so just a bit on work experience information. Avoid listing just duties. Obviously, we'll have some information on the duties. It's a bit flat. Really, what you want to move into is talking about your any project work, any achievements, where you can showcase how you added value to those roles. So any sort of a process you improved, filing system you improved, you revamped the reporting system, anything like that. And it can be on a small scale. Core duties, list the most relevant ones first, especially if you've had a bit of a hybrid role. So you've done a bit of sales, you've done a bit of administration in a job. Some jobs, you're a mix of all things. And you're going for a sales role. Obviously, it makes sense to list the sales experience first in the when you're giving details about a particular job. You can throw in also the admin bit, but it's just not quite as relevant. And the other key thing is metrics. Really important. If you've improved a system, and how did that relate then? End result was it reduced queries by 5%, it improved efficiency by 20, or it brought in 3 new clients that ended up adding, revenue, 10,000 in the quarter. So if you can throw a metric on something, that really gets buy-in, and that example, then it carries real weight. So that's CV. I'm going to talk now about application form. All of what I've said on CV applies for application form too, but there's some sort of more specific things about application form I want to talk about now. So make sure, obviously, you fill out all the sections fully. Some of these application forms can be huge, 26 pages. They can be very long. So do simple things. And I'm saying this because I see it. Have your correct dates. It can be hard, especially if it was 25 years ago you did the job. Do check out your dates. Make sure it all adds up, because what you don't want them to do is be questioning what, that doesn't make sense, that date or that year. Spell check it. And if you're not great at spell checking, do get somebody in your circle that's really eagle eye and very good at that to go back over it for you. The other thing is really read carefully the instructions of each section and then reread it. That's what I see, that people, I've quickly gone through it, they're in a rush, especially if you've seen the job last minute, it's a Friday evening, has to be in by Monday, and you're just rushing through it. Just really read what they're asking. Competencies section, keep within the word count specified. It can be tricky. Some of them are saying 300 words, which is very little really, but you need to try and be succinct, to the point, and keep to that word count. Understand what's been asked, and I'm going to say that again, but it's something that I see quite a bit. So the competency section is generally, they'll kind of maybe ask you 4 competencies that are relevant to the role and ask you for an example. So what I see a lot of the time is that it's a general answer is given. So I am a very strong team player because, often in all my roles, I've worked with the team, I worked with sales, I've worked with the administration team. So there's nothing wrong with saying that. That's good. But what they really want is they want a concrete example. If they say give an example, it means give an example. So you can start that answer in a general sense, 2 or 3 lines of kind of just showing in all your roles, or you've over 15 years people management experience, whatever it is, and say, by way of an example, I give you 1. And you're going to then use the STAR model or the PAR. It's essentially the same thing. Avoid the general day-to-day account when you're giving that answer. They want the story, and I know Ilaria is going to be talking about the storytelling in her talk. It's about the real live work example. The key as well is you must be the main player in that example. It's great if you've been involved in a high-flying project worth millions and millions and it was very successful, but maybe you only had a small part in that project and you feel you want to showcase this, and this is a great example, I love that. It's actually in fact much better to give them a smaller scale example that you were a much bigger part in. Maybe you ran that project from start to finish. So it shows that you can run the show. So then you can build on that. So if I were to think, okay, maybe the project she worked on, we have a slightly larger project, but she can do the A to Z because she's given us that example. Use the STAR structure, and at the end, give metrics where possible. Okay, so the facts, the figures, the numbers, the values, and ideally have a different example for each competency need asked. Sometimes it'll be hard. Maybe you don't have a ton of work experience. So if you have to revisit an example, that's fine, but you need to flip it and come at it from a different focus, from a different angle. Okay, so talk about STAR quickly: situation, task, action, result. Okay, so I'm going to give, I'm running out of time here, so I have to be quick, but a very brief example of what a STAR model will do. So you could say, let's say, for example, you were a manager and you said the situation was the sales report showed the team was 67% off target. They were unlikely to reach their target by the deadline on the 30th of March. The task for me was to find out what the issue was. So if you see there, like they don't all have to be equally weighted. And you can see now from the action piece, there's more information on the action piece. So the situation is you just get to the point, tell them what the brief background is, the task, very to the point, a simple sentence. But now the action piece is where you were involved. And this is the meteor section of this answer. I called the team meteor, went through in detail what potential sales they had in their pipeline. I asked each rep to review each and come back to me within 24 hours with an idea how to close these off. I scheduled a daily huddle meeting for the rest of the week. By the following Friday, the sales figures dramatically improved. End result, by the 30 March deadline, the team had exceeded the target by €10,000. So that's very clear. What did you do? What was the issue? What did you do? And the metrics, your action led to X. Okay, so I'm going to stop talking now, just to summarize what we talked about, and I hope everyone got some good information there. So we just talked about, looking at things from the employer's perspective. What do they need to see? If you get yourself inside the head of the employer, you'll make it a much better and stronger application. Break down the job spec, use the information they've given you, have a good CV format, nice and clear, bullet points, relevant information, tailor it, use your metrics, unique and transferable skills, and a strong opening paragraph. Okay, and I talked about then the application, read the question being asked. Okay, that's me. Thank you so much for your attention.